Ladies and gentlemen, the Green Bay Packers appear to have done it once again. Last night, the San Francisco 49ers defeated the Green Bay Packers 24-21. Extremely close, exciting match in the divisional round of the playoffs. And although the Green Bay Packers lost this game, they should, and at least Packer fans, should walk away from this game feeling like it's a victory. And although they won't advance into the next round of the playoffs, they have a lot to be hopeful for. This season, the Green Bay Packers won 9 games, and in Jordan Love's first year starting after sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years, he finished second in the league in passing touchdowns. Love in Week 18 beat the Chicago Bears to secure their spot. Later, the Packers won in the wildcard round of the playoffs, beating the 2-seed Dallas Cowboys, becoming the first 7-seed in NFL history to win a playoff game. And although the 7th seed has only been around for a few seasons, a lot of those games are complete blowouts because you have the 2 seed, who oftentimes is winning 12, maybe 13 games, playing a team who won maybe 8 or 9 games. The Packers are also the youngest team in the NFL right now. And behind a young head coach, young quarterback, young receiving core, young defense, this is a scary team moving into the future. And that starts at quarterback with Jordan Love. I mean, what are we watching? This is it should be mind-blowing for NFL fans. The fact that the Packers have went from Brett Favre, Hall of Fame quarterback, when he retired, all-time leading passer, one of the greatest players in the game's history, to Aaron Rodgers, who though had a much different play style, is one of the most transcendent quarterbacks ever. He is the league's highest passer rating for a career of all time. Best touchdown interception ratio of all time. Back to back. To now Jordan Love, who, coming out of a relatively small school, sat for 3 years, a guy who, in a lot of ways, wasn't regarded as a legitimate first-round prospect like Aaron Rodgers. This is a guy who the Packers trade up for, who they saw something in, and in 1 year is performing at the end of the season like an MVP candidate. How does this happen? It's unbelievable. It's incredible what is going on right now. And this team next year is going to take over the league. If I had to put money down right now for who I think is going to be the MVP, and I don't sports bet, but if I did, my pick is Jordan Love, based on what I saw at the end of the season. So let's talk a little bit about Jordan Love specifically. He came out of Utah State, which, like I said, is a relatively small school. You don't see a whole lot of Utah State NFL prospects. But that's where he came from. He had a very good second season starting, but his last year at Utah State, things sort of fell apart. A lot of that wasn't really his fault. A lot of players had left, and he was sort of left hung out to dry, and things didn't go very well. But his second year starting looked pretty good, and I think that's what a lot of NFL evaluators were looking at with Jordan Love. And he was a guy who was mobile, who had a very strong arm, and who I think the Packers at least thought that they could mold into their franchise quarterback. After being traded up for late in the first round, he sat like Aaron Rodgers did with Brett Favre. Love sat for 3 years. He got a little bit of action, here and there. He started a few games, but really nothing that exciting. And heading into this season, I saw, some people were projecting Love was going to be good, but I think the consensus was he, might be an average quarterback, and you'll give him next year, and, maybe he could really become something, but I think a lot of us missed the mark. And what the Packers are doing transcends one player. It transcends a coach. It transcends a general manager. The Packers have some sort of organizational philosophy that other NFL teams cannot replicate no matter what they do. With Brett Favre, they have a different coach, a different GM. Then they have Aaron Rodgers, and you have Mike McCarthy for a long time. But then you have Matt LaFleur, who instantly, he comes in, and what do they do their first year? 13 wins. And sure, the quarterback's the same, but the transition from Favre to Rodgers, the Packers won a Super Bowl within 2 years. Rodgers is extremely dominant for over a decade. He wins 4 MVPs. And then you get over to Jordan Love, who, yes, has Matt LaFleur, but they have a different GM than when a lot of times Rodgers was there. So you're talking about several GMs, several coaches, and yet one thing remains constant, and that's consistently high-level quarterback play. How does that happen? I don't know what the exact pinpoint answer is, but I will say this. Jordan Love's success should change the way that NFL teams view quarterbacks. It changes the way that I view quarterbacks, that I view prospects, things that I want in a prospect. Jordan Love and the Packers' organizational philosophy changes everything for me. And here's really what I mean by that. When I was evaluating Love in college, one of his biggest flaws, and I think the thing that really made me hesitant on wanting to draft him, was his accuracy. When I was beginning to watch football and evaluate prospects, one of the things that I've been told, and that's I think a general consensus around NFL media, is that inaccurate quarterbacks in college are inaccurate in the NFL. And I think for a lot of them that's largely true, right? Maybe guys that don't get drafted or late round prospects. But I think that that's not true when you talk about top end prospects. And you have recent examples, like just the last few seasons, of guys who were touted as inaccurate quarterbacks, guys that are not even accurate, who are very successful in the NFL. And maybe the biggest one is Josh Allen. Coming out of Wyoming, the knock on him is this guy's just not accurate. I mean, his completion percentage in college is way under 60%. He gets into the NFL and it's under 60% until his third-year breakout. You see the same thing with Jalen Hurts. Watching him at Alabama, the guy's not accurate. But every year he steadily improves until he's at Oklahoma. And then he becomes more accurate. But even then, you're not thinking that this guy's strength is accuracy. Then he goes on to the Eagles, his rookie year. Not accurate. Second year, slightly more. Boom, third-year breakout. Lamar Jackson. Yes, he won the Heisman in college, but that's largely because of his legs. Especially his rookie year, he was inaccurate. He completed well under 60% of his passes, missed a ton of throws. The Ravens barely threw the ball, and second year, MVP. And you see him now, and he doesn't miss. Right? So, although accuracy you want to see in college, I don't think that's like as important as we make it out to be. What I've noticed with accuracy, with these high-level quarterbacks, guys that have the physical traits, that have the mentality, that are in good situations, that we see breakouts in, especially in the case of Jordan Love, it's about timing. It's about confidence. It's about repetition. It's not about whether you were that great at it in college. And that's especially true with Jordan Love. I mean, watching him throw the ball with the Packers, he's off his back foot. And they constantly show the graphic of he's throwing with both of his feet up in the air. It's true. Is that how you want? I mean, go to any high school or college or most NFL teams, you're not teaching the guy to throw like that. But the Packers are. And that happened with Favre and with Rodgers, and now it's with Love. And that sort of philosophy with accuracy, that transcends just one individual. It's something that they believe and something that constantly works. And I don't think that that's something that other teams are able to mimic. And that speaks to just how special this organization is. And that's being carried over right now with Jordan Love. So, accuracy was my knock with Love, but we see now just how great that looks. The other thing is the Packers, for whatever reason, and it's clearly working, but they don't really take receivers very high in the draft. I mean, sometimes in the second round, but the last time they took a receiver in the first round was like forever ago. And when Aaron Rodgers was there towards the end of his career, there's all these headlines about how the Packers, have to take a receiver high. They don't have any receivers. And every year the organization, they don't say it out loud, but they speak with their actions. They don't take a receiver very high. And I think that has a lot to do with their philosophy with quarterbacks and with offense, which is you don't need some generational freak athlete. You don't need a Randy Moss type. I mean, sure, that would be nice, right? I mean, sure, they would want a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson, but for the way that they run offenses, they don't need that. I mean, how many times are they under center, throwing quick screens, throwing quick slants? Like, who says you need a player like that, like a Jamar Chase, to run their system? You have late round picks. You have Bo Melton, You have Romeo Doubs. I mean, these are some player. I mean, they have players making plays that other teams they wouldn't see the field. And so the Packers' idea for what they want in offense has everything to do with fit. It's who fits their system. The other reason I think why Jordan Love is so successful, and is probably the most obvious reason, is that he sat behind Aaron Rodgers for 3 years. Now, I speak all the time about when you have a quarterback and you have a young quarterback, you got to figure out very quickly whether he's the guy or not. And I do believe that wholeheartedly. A lot of that stems from contract, right? The easiest way to win in the NFL, at least the modern NFL, is to have a good quarterback on your rookie contract so you can give him all the weapons in the world, surround him, and that's your opportunity to win. And you see that oftentimes with teams that are in the Super Bowl or in conference championship games. You may not win them, every time, but a lot of times it's guys on their rookie contracts, right? And if they're not on their rookie contracts, they're typically like the best of the best, right? Like the Patrick Mahomes, the Joe Burrow, the Josh Allen. Those guys are so good that it doesn't really matter. But with younger quarterbacks, it's typically rookie contracts. So that's part of the reason why I believe that with a young quarterback, you got to know within at least probably 2 seasons whether he's the guy or not. The Packers don't believe that. They believe that whatever kind of quarterback that they're looking for, they can mold him. And they can make him good enough. And they believe in their ability to make him good enough that they can wait 3 years because they know he's going to be good. It started obviously with Brett Favre. And with Aaron Rodgers, by the time he got into starting, he was already good. And part of the reason why Love is so good now is because the guy doesn't have any bad tendencies. I talked yesterday about Justin Fields, about how many bad tendencies that he has. And part of the reason that he has those bad tendencies is because he played at Ohio State when things are so different. It's a tough transition going from Ohio State to the Chicago Bears. It's really, really tough. And because he has to start so early, and because he's probably not ready, he develops bad tendencies. It's very hard to weed those out. Love didn't have that. Love had the luxury of sitting and learning and developing and getting better. That over time, by the time he gets into starting, he knows what to do every single play. Now, that doesn't mean that everything's always pretty. I mean, early on in the season, right, the Packers struggled a little bit, especially midseason. And, really early on in the first few weeks, Love's box score numbers were good, but he didn't really impress me all that much. And there was even a point midseason where there were headlines and there were, sports media talking about how the Packers have to move on from Love and how this is a fast league and he's just not playing well enough. And I think for the most part, that was actually true. There was a point midseason where he wasn't playing that well. The offense wasn't really meshing together, and they were losing games. That's all true. But something happened midseason. And I can't exactly pinpoint what that thing was. What was that one thing? How do you go from the beginning of the season, at least playing like, must be nice, in like a really average quarterback at the beginning of the season. Midseason they're losing, things are not going that well, but let's just say average quarterback. How do you go from average to literally playing like the best quarterback in the league, at least the last 5 regular season games, which then snowballed into the playoffs where he's blowing out the Dallas Cowboys, blowing them out, one of the best teams in the league, blowing them out, to being one drive away from beating the San Francisco 49ers, the 1 seed in the NFC, who a lot of us this year believe is the most impeccable roster in the NFL, the best offensive coach in the NFL, a quarterback who was an MVP candidate until the last 3 weeks of the year. Christian McCaffrey is maybe the offensive player of the year. They have the most ferocious pass rush in the game, one of the best defenses in the game, maybe only behind the Ravens, and he's a drive away from beating them. One thing does not happen. But like I said, this is a philosophy. It's an attitude. It's a culture. It's a work ethic. What the Packers are doing cannot be replicated. And like I said, if I had to put my money on somebody to be the MVP next season, it is Jordan Love. And it's for those exact reasons. So Packer fans, get ready. NFL fans, get ready to be terrorized for the next 10 years. Because I really believe that Jordan Love has already taken that next step, but will take more levels of steps next season. The thing that the Packers are doing is incredible. And even a team like the New England Patriots, right? Who you would assume back in 2018, 2019, 2020, like that is the culture, right? You have Belichick, you have stable ownership, stable GM, stable coach. They couldn't transition off of Tom Brady. This is the Packers another time around doing it. This is now, I mean, if you count Favre, Rodgers, Love, that's 3, but it's really their second time transitioning from Rodgers to Love. So that's 2 quarterbacks that they're transitioning to, from Favre into Rodgers into Love. But really, if you think about it, they've transitioned way more than that with different GMs, with different coaches, with different quarterbacks. And they're consistently developing quarterbacks to play at a high level. So, man, as a Bears fan, this scares everything about me. Unfortunately, Love is that good, but it's time that we really talk about just how great that this player is, and he really is that great. So definitely let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your opinions. I want to hear everybody's thoughts and where you think Love is going to be next year. Like and subscribe. It's the easiest way to support the channel, and I will see you all in the next video.